enable businesses in Uganda to leverage their data to create new opportunities. As the country's first Tier 3 carrier-neutral colocation data center, Raxio is designed to host critical IT equipment that businesses depend on. Equipment that will be housed in an optimally controlled environment and monitored by our team of experts. We have partnered with leading data center designers to build a facility that will deliver highly efficient cooling, resilient power supply, and unrivaled connectivity. Your business is important to us. That's why we've ensured unmatched security and internationally recognized operating protocols. You will have peace of mind knowing that your equipment is under the best of care. We can also accommodate our customers in purpose-designed flexible workspaces and meeting rooms to enable you keep your business moving. But where the magic happens is in the Raxio Data Hall, which will house up to 400 racks. It will offer flexible scaling options with a range of power densities and connectivity to fiber, mobile, broadband, content distribution networks, and cloud service providers. A host for all enterprises, providing a hub for connectivity across the region. An exceptional service you can trust. Raxio, the data center company.
Introducing the Raxio Data Centre, the first of its kind in Uganda. Nestled within the Kampala Industrial and Business Park in Namanve, the Raxio Data Centre will enable businesses in Uganda to leverage their data to create new opportunities. As the country's first Tier 3 carrier-neutral colocation data centre,
Hello everyone. It's so good to have you with us. I am your virtual host, Raxi. I will be making sure you have a fun and engaging time with us. If I may now direct your attention to the screen, we've put on a little show for you. I believe the saying is, Maso ku lutimbe, or simply, watch this. I will now hand you over to my teammate to take you through the rest of this day's events. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, a man as handsome as he is hilarious, Dr. Misha Guang.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think by the time my co-host introduces me, I deserve a round of applause. That's only fair. It's only fair. Our guest of honor, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of ICT, Vincent Bagire, Your Excellency, the American Ambassador, representatives from the French Embassy, c'est bien de vous voir ici cet après-midi. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press corps, my name is Dr. Ronnie Michigwang, and I'm going to be your master of ceremony today. I'd like to say one thing. Welcome to the future. What is the future? Interesting question. The future can be stated with statistics. The top 6 companies in the world are digital, online, computer, and they rely heavily on information. And somebody once said that information is the oil of the 21st century, and analytics is the combustion engine. So today in Uganda, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to unveil to you Raxio, the data center company. What does it bring? Why do we need it here? What's so powerful about co-location, about cross-connection, about access to fibers, about security? Ladies and gentlemen, those are all questions that I'd like to ask one person to come up on stage here and answer for me. He's an individual that I've known for, I think, close to 3 decades. From our days back at the university, he used to be a geek 166%. No doubt, of course, he ends up working at the top telecom companies in the region and around the world. It's my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome a man with over 20 years of ICT experience under his belt. Please welcome with me, Mr. James Byaruhanga.
Thank you for that big announcement and introduction, Doctor. First of all, I'm slightly younger than 20, so I started my IT career when I was not yet born. I was not in university with that very old man. Anyway, so today my mother was a teacher, and the more time I spend with my friends, they think I should have been a teacher, so I figured I shouldn't let them down and use today as a way to share a few things. Hopefully you learned something new today. If you do not, I would suggest that when we're having drinks, you engage me on the side. I'll teach you something else, maybe about the drinks. So I've been thinking about what we'll discuss today, and what I realized was, as it says, we are living in the future presently. So my topic today is pretty much about evolution, and is it revolution or is it both? I want to request someone from the technical desk to come and help me with my comfort screen, and then we can jump into this. So you all remember that we had time to study history and discuss about the different stages of evolution, and I thought the best place to start was where it all began. The first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, the third industrial revolution. You know, in the first industrial revolution, it was just after a time when everything was being handmade, being woven, and then there was a need to increase on production. These things were catalyzed by the steam engine. And the steam engine in general helped us because it helped in speeding up the production process of things. Textile industries and iron industries started to prosper because the steam engine was able to power up stuff. But that was not enough because raw materials were spread all over the world. What was important now was how do we get these raw materials as close as possible to the factories? And that's how transportation becomes critical, the railroad. And then if you're going to make your orders, how do you communicate? The telegraph came into the play. And then, of course, after some time, everyone started competing heavily. This kind of sparked an interesting evolution, which was not that great industrially, which was the couple of world wars. We had the First and Second World War. At the end of the Second World War, I think people got tired of fighting and thought maybe we should be more productive. This is when we start seeing the beginning of the third revolution, which was driven by computers, digitalization. In the 20th century, that's when we saw the beginning of people getting into the computing space and the production of the Z1 computer running on Boolean logic. And this is the stuff that kind of sparked off what the top 6 companies that Dr. Mitchell was talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves in an interesting position where we are now faced with the 4th industrial revolution. And this is being driven heavily by computing. So, what do we then see as having been an involvement? You saw first evolution based on the steam, and then of course electrification coming in after Faraday and Franklin, and then we see computing coming in. Now we're getting into automation as a way of life. So what does this mean for us when you think about it? Life has a way of throwing surprises at you. Last year was one of those years where no one planned it. Personally, I thought it was going to be my year. We were starting this project. It was exciting. I thought we were going to really change the world overnight. But again, there was a curveball. COVID-19, as the pandemic happened. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, suddenly you are caught off guard. Work stopped, life stopped, borders got closed. People were sent from school to go back home. We started working online, which was great for a lot of people because you didn't have to bathe to leave home. You just sit down and just work. Kids started studying online. That became a bit of a challenge. Connectivity became stressed. attention span, being able to manage home and work at the same time, became very tricky. Borders got closed. Movement of goods and products became a challenge. Companies providing connectivity got stretched to the limit because they never anticipated this kind of demand. Minimal contact, physical contact, meetings suspended. You started hearing new buzzwords: Zoom, Teams, Blue Jeans. These are companies that were initially only in techie spaces, becoming prominent, becoming part of the urban dictionary. Congestion in medical facilities. You need service, you need an online way to be able to access your service. What does that mean? Now, when you think about it, a country like Uganda, where we are, we're very heavily landlocked with about, I think, 5 border countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, DRC. I actually like to think that Burundi is a neighbor. South Sudan, we have a GDP growth of about 4%, population of 46 million, of which 50% are youth under 14, right? We are an interesting country and an interesting demographic. How do we react to something like COVID-19 when it happened? Now, as I mentioned, with all the things that are changing, we are now pushed into a be-at-home environment, but you're not going to starve. You must stay productive, right? So when I'm thinking about this, I realized that what was driving Uganda at the time was what were the connectivity options that we had at our disposal. What do we have in Uganda? We've got about 6 submarine cables that we depend on landing in Mombasa. This all started between 2008 until today. It's been the fastest growing landing point location pretty much in Africa and very close to most of the world. We've got one internet exchange point in Uganda. We call it the UIXP. You're actually in the presence of where one of the POPs is going to be for the internet exchange point. We have about 6 terrestrial cables running from Mombasa to Kampala, about 12 local fiber cables running within Uganda, about 5 mobile network operators. Also, one of the most populous mobile network operating countries in Africa is actually Uganda. About 10 fixed wireless providers. A lot of you guys are in the house. Thank you for coming through. 6 mobile wireless providers and about 8 ISPs, pure ISPs. So it looks like for 46 million we could be able to provide something, right? But the thing is, the one complaint I had from every single person was that the internet was too slow. They were not able to have one child watching a Netflix movie, mother or father working, the kids who are studying, the support staff on social media. Suddenly the links were stressed and you were not able to do anything that was supposed to be constructive, right? So with this kind of situation, we had to start figuring out what are our solutions, you know? So it comes to your mind, what are we ready to do to be able to keep up with the rest of the world? Do you feel like you're ready for the 4th industrial revolution with these connectivity challenges you've got? Are the content providers building content fast enough to be able to keep up and compete on the global stage? When you think about all the questions of the 4th industrial revolution and what it presents, start to wonder if we're actually in the right place at the right time. Some of you guys must be listening and saying, okay, what is this 4th industrial revolution? And what are the facets that build the 4th industrial revolution? I thought I should share this. I mentioned earlier the 1st and the 2nd and the 3rd were based on steam engine, assembly lines, computing. Now we're in the 4th, which is a multitude of things. Take a step back and think about your life. Everyone in here has a smartphone. I'm seeing a lot of them being pointed to the screen. A lot of you here have got smart radios in your car. You're streaming music from your smartphone to your smart radio. Everyone these days is a fitness freak. You're measuring the steps, you're seeing your heart rate, you're seeing your blood pressure. Some of you have smart TVs. Hopefully all of you will have smart TVs very soon. Smart fridges, CCTV cameras monitoring your home. All these different things build what is called the IoT, the Internet of Things. Of things generates a lot of data, which is currently being referred to as big data. Big data needs a place to sit. Cloud platforms present this kind of environment where you can store all this stuff. Data is useless if you can't use it for any business decisions. Hence, big data analytics coming in to start helping things. Now you have all this information, you've interpreted you know how it can make a difference for your business. What do you do next? You start to think about how you improve efficiencies. Automation built on artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence works as close as possible to augmented reality and virtual reality. Virtual reality becoming the centerpiece of entertainment right now. And then you think about how do we use other tools and facets like machine learning to be able to stay ahead of the curve. You think about how internet has evolved in the Far East. These guys have come out of nowhere and started taking the forefront of development. If you think about the youngest continent being Africa, with the youngest country being Uganda, how do you keep up? Young people are driven by interest in technology. So how do you utilize technology to give you the same computing edge? This is when you start talking about data centers. How do they fit into the picture? The role of a data center is basically to provide a home, an environment that you can host equipment. As simple as that. But you've all walked around, you realize it's not that simple. To provide a home, just like your home, where you stay, you need security. You need the. For a data center, we think about 4 key things. We think about connectivity. There must be an adequate amount of connectivity, but it must also be protected. It cannot go off. You need power, sufficient power with backup. You need cooling. Equipment generates a lot of heat, and the more equipment you have, the hotter it gets. You need sufficient cooling, but preferably cooling that takes as less from the environment as possible. Green cooling. And some way where you can also use as little power as possible to cool. You need the power, but you need to save on the power. It's a huge operation cost. And then you need the space, because the space is the business. You guys are sitting right now in phase 2 and phase 3 of our space. Later on tonight, hopefully you see phase 1. What is driving IoT right now, what's driving the 4th industrial revolution is cloud. Data centers are the home of cloud platforms. You cannot have them scattered all over the place. You need to have them in a location that can actually participate in the ecosystem. Remember, Uganda is a landlocked country. We need a location where these submarine fiber cables can land. So you need a virtual landing point for submarine cables. What you basically need is a heartbeat of an ecosystem that is taking over everywhere, and to stay afloat, you need to be able to stay ahead of the game, right? But data centers, anything. You can describe them in any way. You have a server room in your office, it's your data center. Service providers and telcos have server rooms. Some even give space for other customers. It's also a data center. It works. Banks, usually when I go to visit them, they tell me, but we already have a data center. Why must we use your data center? The thing is, there's a word called carrier neutral. It's a phrase. But in Raxio, we've taken it a step ahead and say carrier and cloud neutral. Why is this important? And what's the big idea? The thing is this. Ecosystems can only work when everyone has easy access to them. Free operation, economies of trade and scale can work between the different players, and you allow everyone and the ecosystem to grow as and how it should grow, right? Think about the total cost of ownership. Think about the cost it takes you as an individual to build an in-house solution. Think about the cost to keep running it. The cost you spend on an IT infrastructure set up in your own environment, especially when it's not your core business, is significantly high compared to looking for out-of-home solutions. But not just any solution, a solution that's going to give you the service that you're interested in having at the right service level availability. You cannot afford uptime that is lower than 100%, right? But maybe let's knock off a 0.0002 or whatever it is. We at Raxio are now have built a tier 3 data center, the first in Uganda, by the way, certified, and we promise you a service uptime of 5 nines. We have designed everything in 2N level so that you're able to get the service all the time. Every single thing you saw is in 2s as a minimum. And then we have, of course, some areas in phase 2 and phase 3 where we shall even go above that. Think about connectivity. When you've got an in-house solution, how many connectivity partners can you have? Maybe one, maybe two, if you're really able to spend some money. But the truth is, you need more than that. You need options. You need to be able to choose from who you want. In Raxio Uganda, we have 10 so far. We're looking to grow this to even bigger numbers, to be able to give you an option as a customer to choose and use whoever you feel like using. Security is a very critical thing. The question that comes up every single time with media, especially, people are asking, how can we be sure that your place is secure? Think about the cost of building the right security network. Think about the physical security, think about the human security, think about CCTV, biometric access, and everything that goes along, up to even providing cages so that you as a customer can feel comfortable to have your own caged environment. This is what carrier neutral data centers can bring, especially if they are built to the level that we've built here, and I hope you all appreciate it. Maybe lastly, I can just quickly hint about regulation. Government, regulators, in the interest of the country, make sure that data protection is critical. Data protection leads to other conversations like data sovereignty, which is keeping data in country. A lot of you guys are fighting with compliance, struggling to figure out how do I actually keep my data in country and be able to provide a service to my customers. The location has been a problem. You need a place that is safe enough, a distance from the your main site. And we thought when we were doing our site selection, where can we be that can provide connectivity, stable power, be able to give you a disaster recovery location. And that is how Namamve Industrial Park becomes a very nice location for us. We've got connectivity here, we've got power, we've got sufficient amount of water with two sources to be able to provide you the cooling that you require and be able to give you disaster recovery for your equipment. So when you think about it, why Raxio in Uganda, so to speak? Have you thought about leveraging your co-location? Do you need to have these services in-house, or do you want to go for a lower total cost of ownership solution and we co-locate for you? Take away your pain and make sure that you get stable power, stable cooling, and the environment has connectivity that you require. I used to be a network engineer for very many years, and my biggest problem was the Friday night phone calls. Somehow the network only goes down on Friday night. And maybe Friday night is not the night you want to be receiving a phone call like that. We've got a 24/7 network support center that is going to be able to take away that pain for your IT guys, be able to allow them to get their time off and be able to support them all the time. Another thing that we provide is basically services that will allow you to move your gear. So many people we talk to tell you, how will I move my equipment? I already have everything set up here. And we're saying to them, we can lift and shift for you. Let us know that you're willing to move your gear. We can lift and shift this for you. We've thought about how we can help you save on overall. I've spoken with a couple of you people and we've had extreme in-depth conversations, and I've asked you questions about how much do you actually spend on your IT infrastructure. I know a lot of people don't even know this. And when we go through it in depth and we start working on the total cost of ownership, people realize that they're actually bleeding money on in-house setup. So we want to help you save some money. The last thing would basically be cross-connect. Cross-connect, I'm sure, is something that you guys have probably not heard of so much. What really makes the world go round in terms of internet, and in fact internet itself is an interconnection of networks. These days internet is an interconnection of data centers. What makes the world go round is having two different enterprises connect to each other. When you're on your phone, when you're using your phone, your laptop, your tab for the internet, you don't care so much about what's happening in the back end. But what's technically happening is that two networks, three networks, more networks are connecting to each other at that moment in time. So you find that the packet that is happening, the picture you're taking right now that you're sharing, is probably even going through the States, through Europe, in a set of microseconds and going to someone else that is just maybe right next door. We want to build a local cross-connect hub where all the stuff can be switched locally. That increases on the speed at which you can share stuff. It reduces on the overall cost that the consumer gets, and it helps also build a much more stable network. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed today. Let's change Africa and Uganda together. Adios.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Biawahanga, General Manager of Raxio, the Data Center Company. So this story about data, where did it start? We'd like to tell you a story. And you know, every time you're telling a story, it's always good to start from the beginning.
So, what is the best way to tell a story? A story as complex as the Raxio Data Centre story? Well, you simply have to go back to the beginning of how all this unfolded. In the beginning, there was a dream that was born in Africa. Africa, the home of a special country called Uganda. Yes, Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. And that dream was to build a world-class data center in the heartland of Kampala, the city of 100 hills. They say it is the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world who do so in the end. Why would anyone want to build a data center in Uganda? What was the motivation, the dream, the vision? To answer these questions, here is the trio of amazing partners who have made this happen. That is James Biawahanga, Brooks Washington, and Robert Mullins, who dare to dream and bring to life Uganda's private Tier 3 data center.
We decided to build a data center in Uganda because it is a great mix of the trends that are propelling data center growth around the world. So that gives us a customer base that really needs the services that we provide and that values them.
What an interesting start to an amazing story. So, one would ask, how did the connection come about?
I had met Brooks through a mutual partner. So he asked me about the telecom business, told him how things were going. So he asked me what opportunities I was seeing in the market. And I basically told him that really I think the opportunity is around building a data center in Uganda. And he responds to me with the strangest things, like, I've actually been looking to invest in a data center. And Uganda is one of those markets we've been thinking about. That's about the time when now Robert comes into the picture to really, steer this ship.
What a unique story. The story is as unique as the name itself, Raxio. In fact, did you know the name Raxio stands for Rax, Input and Output? Well, now you know. Why did this trio of partners and trailblazers choose to invest their time and resources into Raxio Data Center?
From an investor perspective, from a ROHA perspective, what we do is we look precisely at this kind of opportunity. So we look precisely at where there are evident gaps between supply and demand. And the more we learned about it, the more we were convinced that data centers were an area that required further investment and attention on the continent.
We see this as one of the unique economies across the region that has this mix of both interest from global players like Google's major investments in fiber, growing local demand, and really a progressive financial services sector that allows us to have a pretty dynamic business.
Looking at Raxio Data Center, one thing is evident: use of the best world-class partners. That is the team behind the development and construction of the world-class facility. So how exactly was this team of experts set up?
After site selection, the next stage was to basically figure out how we build this thing. And this is when now ROHA really came and stepped into the play. And they really engaged a UK firm called FutureTech, who is basically a world-class data center designer. We chose Rocco as the main contractor on the civil works. Then we now had to look at who is our M&E contractor. So we ended up with Giza Systems and Meta. So we basically built a team out of the two. So we needed consultants to work with. On the architecture side, we had Symbion, we had Build Cost as our quantity surveyor, and of course through Symbion we managed to now get a couple of other, smaller consultants for different things that would basically be able to complete, the whole picture.
Wow! What an introduction to the amazing story as told by the three people who brought to life the Raxio Data Center story.
So that's where it started from. And I think if I was to touch on the things that James mentioned, co-location, security, cross-connection, access to fibers, man, these are all the things that I want to hear. But I think he probably was so excited, he even forgot to mention something else that I really loved. You know, there's space here for you to come and actually do your meetings and the rest. So you've got customer spaces which are designed just for comfort, convenience, and ergonomics. Now, these are all the things that I'd like to tick off. But that was only the beginning of the story. There's a part 2. And this is how it goes.
Being a part of something special, like the construction of Raxio Data Centre, is a dream come true. How did the team feel working on a project such as this?
First of all, we were delighted when we were approached by Raxio to be the consultant who would design and oversee the construction of this facility. We know that it was a unique facility, the first of its kind within the country, and we really appreciate that we would be part of this new endeavor within the country.
For me, it was quite a challenge in terms of the type of project.
What were the expectations working on this project?
Our expectations on this project was that it would have several disciplines who would have to collaborate to achieve this feat. So there would be a lot of interaction and innovation on our part to successfully achieve this project within the country.
How different was this project from others the consultants and experts have worked on?
Multi-story buildings, which in design it changes, differs, but in principle it is the same thing.
In spite of not featuring in this documentary due to logistical challenges, Raxio Data Centre would like to recognize the efforts and contribution made towards the construction of Raxio Data Centre. Raxio Data Centre was a unique project, not only with regards to the magnitude of the project, but also the special understanding it took for the market to get the big question: why does one need the facilities provided at Raxio Data Centre?
These are critical for storing data, both personal and business and government data here locally, and storing it in a way that's safe and secure and readily accessible.
So, how did the market embrace Raxio Data Centre? Has there been progress made towards the market understanding the unique proposition that Raxio Data Centre brings to the table?
We really had to sensitize the market. We did this through conferences, through webinars. We had customers visit our data center to understand what we are doing versus what the market has in place. We have about 70% occupancy for our phase 1 deployment.
We all know nothing amazing comes easy. And throughout the construction of Raxio Data Centre, there was a number of construction challenges that stood in the way of the timely completion of the world-class data center.
Timelines, mainly because of COVID-19, delivery of specialized workers who are not in country.
The construction of Raxio Data Centre experienced back-to-back challenges that were unforeseeable at the onset. With these challenges, how did they manage to overcome the changes in timeless while delivering on a world-class data center project of this magnitude?
We had to restructure our delivery timelines on this project. We updated our policies to achieve this. And then for items that were being manufactured and procured out of the country, we had to engage those partners and suppliers and renegotiate different routes and ports to deliver some aspects that were affected by this pandemic.
The more you listen, the more you understand what a special project Raxio Data Centre was. In the next and the final part of the documentary, we look into the crystal ball and unveil what holds for the future of Raxio Data Centre.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome somebody who's responsible for leading the expansion of Raxio's data centers across Africa, but he also manages the group's relationships with its networks at international and regional levels. Please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Raxio, Robert Mullins.
afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Our dear guest of honor, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, Mr. Vincent Bajire, Your Excellency, Madame Ambassador Brown, representatives of the French Embassy, our dear guests and customers, our construction and technical partners, our shareholder representatives, the board of directors of the Raxio Group and of Raxio Uganda, of course our dear staff here in Raxio Uganda and at the group level, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone joining us live on the live stream. It is a true privilege to be here today to welcome you all for the launch of Raxio Data Centre here in Uganda. Not the first time you've heard this, but the first facility of its kind here in Uganda. This day has been a long time in the making, as I'm sure you've also heard. And it therefore gives me great pleasure and joy to see all the key stakeholders who have worked tirelessly to make this dream a reality, gathered here together to witness history in the making. This is a journey that started back in 2018, and the result, I'm sure you will all agree, having had the tour, is really a phenomenal achievement, fruit of extremely hard work and dedication of all the parties involved in the project. A journey which was never going to be easy, given its very unique nature, the first time a facility of this scale and of this technological standard has been built in Uganda and even in the region. And this was before additional layers of adversity that we faced, primarily, of course, the global pandemic that hit us last year. My first reaction on reaching site today, the last time I was here was in December, was literally goosebumps. I was overrun with emotion as we toured the site with the management team, with James, with Ken, with Ian, and flashbacks of our journey ran through my head from the very early days in 2018 and through the multiple stages that we've been through to finally see this finished product today. So my predominant sentiment today is one of really extreme gratitude. Gratitude first and foremost to the Raxio team, both here in Uganda and the project team from the group level, without whose Herculean efforts, even, or I should say maybe especially over the last few days, are the main reason we're all able to be here today. As a layman, it is only really in speaking to those people, to those deeply involved in the day-to-day, that one realizes that really no detail has been spared, no stone left unturned, and everything you see in this data center, every cable tray, every cable, every pipe, almost every nut and bolt, as Ian told me, has its story. But also gratitude to our extended family of partners and stakeholders who have been instrumental in turning our dream into this incredible facility. With the growth in data usage and storage and the broader digital transformation of the business and public sector in Uganda, we hope this facility will be a centerpiece of infrastructure supporting the continued digitalization of the Ugandan economy and many of the goals set out in the Ministry of ICT digital strategy. I'd like to just say a few words about the group as well. So Raxio Data Centre here in Uganda is part of the Raxio Group, which is now on track to launch up to 12 very similar carrier-neutral facilities in key growth markets across Africa within the next few years, including what will very likely be a second facility here in Uganda, most likely also around the Entebbe area. For this, we benefit of the strong support. We have benefited and continue to benefit from the strong support of our shareholders, the Roha Group, who is our anchor sponsor and financed the company from the beginning, and Meridium, who has recently joined as an investor to help us continue down our path of expansion. We've already launched the construction of our second facility by building Ethiopia's first carrier-neutral Tier 3 co-location data center, and are also now in the execution and pre-construction phase for a series of carrier-neutral facilities in the DRC, starting with the first one in Kinshasa. It is with extreme pride, therefore, that we're here to launch Raxio Data Centre as our flagship and reference facility for many of these other markets on the continent, here in Uganda today. Only one of very few Tier 3 privately owned facilities on the continent. Just a couple of words, I know you've all received the tour, but just a couple of words about the facility itself, and our facilities more broadly. Our facilities are designed according to what we call a metro edge design approach that is popular in more mature markets, and then adapting it to an African context and an African environment. This term metro edge, when referred to around these facilities, is facilities that are typically located close to urban centers with hybrid, multi-tenant, hyperscale-ready architectures. Our data centers are designed to offer optimal connectivity, as James thoroughly explained in his presentation, but also operational environments for our customers, while maintaining really an unwavering commitment to minimize the environmental footprint and respect for our natural ecosystems. This part is important and is done primarily through our equipment choice, all of which has been carefully selected and adapted to suit local environmental conditions. We are also fortunate that here in Uganda, and actually in many of our target markets, the majority of the power we use in these facilities is generated from renewable sources. Our approach is really to develop future-proof infrastructure, which is fundamentally different from historical facilities that may have been built around the area, and even from some current facilities which are being built on the continent. And these are often more based on traditional and some now aged technologies and or operational models. This ensures that not only can we best serve our customers here in Uganda, but also attract the very demanding international customers and content providers into the continent. We often get asked the question, why Africa first of all, and why Uganda in particular? When we look across our target markets, we see some common features, and the principal drivers across the board are really centered about this exponential growth that we see in connectivity, in consumption of data, and in demand for digital services. All of these require state-of-the-art supporting infrastructure. Uganda's ICT sector is one of the most vibrant and fastest growing within the region. And that, combined with several other favorable regulatory and operational factors that we evaluated, drove us to embark on our adventure starting here first. We also see a strong entrepreneurial spirit here in Uganda within the young population, something that I've been able to witness firsthand over the past 3 years, and whose thirst for content also drives the growth in traffic that we are seeing. Businesses and the public sector are also maturing along their digital journeys, increasingly requiring more advanced and reliable IT infrastructures to deliver their services. With the construction of Raxio Data Centre here in Uganda, we also believe that we can greatly support some of the core priorities of the Ministry of ICT in Uganda, specifically around ICT infrastructure, job creation through ICT research and innovation, and also information security, ensuring that information systems and equipment are secure, reliable, and resilient. So to conclude, as the digitalization of various sectors of the economy increases in Uganda and Africa at large, we are really extremely proud, and I can say that on my behalf and on behalf of the whole team, to be able to be an enabling force and contribute our little, or maybe not so little, grain of sand to this process. We invite you to join us in this amazing digital journey. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Executive Officer of Raxio Group, Robert Mullins. Round of applause to him. So a story is not a story unless it has an ending. So, ladies and gentlemen, the completion of the story.
What an amazing story it has been. As we start to finish this important story, will we see another data center in Uganda? What does the future hold beyond this, and where does Raxio Data Centre go from here?
Right now, we are seriously thinking about maybe starting this next year, building UG2, because we do have customers who basically are saying, you cannot give us this very nice one-class facility and then we keep the rest of our kit in a lousy location. We're also watching closely, obviously, the evolution of the oil and gas sector in Uganda, and we're thinking about the possibility of maybe building a data center to meet the requirements of the Albertine Valley. This is still very, very early days, but if there was a Raxio UG3, that might be the kind of location that would be very exciting. And then that way we can build a triangle of data centers where you can have multiple locations in case there was that once in a lifetime experience where maybe we lose one of the facilities, whether it's connectivity or whatever it is, you can always recover from the other two. Or anyway, even if it's just your gear that went off, you should be able to recover from the other two. So basically thinking along those lines. I think 2 is ideal for us. 3 is doable as well.
It is said good things indeed come to those who wait. And so does the business and economic ecosystem of Uganda with regards to the finalization of Raxio Data Centre, the first of its kind in Uganda. We welcome you to join us in this digital, economic and operational transformation for the good of Uganda, East Africa and Africa.
All right. So there you have the story. But I'm sure a lot of you are wondering now, so when do I get a piece of this action? Well, you can't launch a structure of this magnitude without a guest of honor. So it's my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome our guest of honor, the Permanent Secretary from the Uganda Ministry of Information, Communication, Technology, and National Guidance. Please put your hands together for Mr. Vincent Waiswa Bagire.
Thank you, Dr. Mitch, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the U.S. to Uganda, representatives of the French Embassy, senior government officials here present, the Raxio Group Board, the data center management, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, I'll call them the 3 musketeers, James, Brooks, and Robert. I'll start first of all by congratulating you on this very important piece of infrastructure that you have put together. And indeed, it is with a great honor and a pleasure that I stand before you here today. First of all, to witness what Raxio has done here in our country. The fact that they've been able to put up this very important infrastructure really demonstrates their intentions. And I think as government, we have no choice but to support them. And I can see colleagues from government. I think that's the Commissioner General of URA, if I'm not mistaken. James, it's your choice to pay, but I think you should be a consumer of your services as well. I understand that Raxio Data Centre will be the first enterprise-grade Tier 3 certified carrier neutral data center that is ideally located along the key fiber routes in the country and will give us cross-connection and IT infrastructure services, as they've already demonstrated. From the tour of this facility and the inspection, I have seen the innovation, the technology, the equipment that has been used for setting up the data center, and I can indeed confirm this is a world-class facility that will support a number of industries, including but not limited to enterprise, financial services, telecom companies, media, among others. As the Ministry of ICT and the sector at large, we are even more delighted because what they have done here fits in quite well with the Digital Transformation Program. The Digital Transformation Program is one of the 18 programs under the National Development Plan 3 that broadly addresses 4 core areas. One of those is connectivity, and that's exactly what the data center here is providing us. The other one, from the government perspective, is e-services, electronic services. In essence, automating all government business processes so that we ease the access of services to the Ugandan citizen. And indeed, we need services such as the data center, and of course, Robert has mentioned cybersecurity or information security and innovation. So those four are indeed part and parcel of our data or our digital transformation program as a country. Uganda's ICT sector is a very competitive one of the fastest growing ones in the country, largely driven by the telecommunications subsector. In the years before the COVID crisis, the ICT sector has grown at an average of 20% per annum. And this indeed is on the account of the growth of the telecommunications subsector. Our internet penetration is at 49% at the moment, and that is increasing by the day. The ICT sector is one of the country's real economy, employing directly and indirectly close to 1.3 million people. And we are confident that with the introduction of services such as the ones that Raxio is going to offer, this number can only increase. We have in excess of 380,000 companies engaged in information technology, telecommunications, broadcasting, postal services and courier, and audiovisual services. The government of Uganda is facilitating the sector by spending annually 162 billion. That is, by the sector I mean the ministry and its agencies. But indeed, this figure goes beyond that on account of the other ministries, departments, and agencies and what they invest in the ICT sector. This investment can only increase competition and activity in the area of ICT, and indeed, we are hopeful that what Raxio is doing is going to heavily complement the investments that our government is doing. Based on the liberal business environment, the sector's growth and competitiveness has already attracted global players, as we are witnessing here today, and have set up operations in Uganda alongside growing local enterprises with considerable international experience. Uganda as a country, as you all know, has a very young population that is vibrant, with an SME sector that is also very vibrant, and this breeds innovation in technology as the main driver of trade and payments. These, without a doubt, require very stable financial systems to support the banking and mobile platforms that drive the financial or fintech sector in the country. Government has continuously encouraged investment and involvement in agriculture, manufacturing, and agro-processing that have also evolved globally with the introduction of ICT and the Internet of Things in these various sectors. Companies in the sectors like banking, insurance, telecommunications, among others, must indeed improve and adapt to the new world as you're witnessing today. Government has also invested in a very aggressive power generation initiative with huge power projects like Bujagali, Isimba, Karuma, Achwa hydropower projects. These projects are designed to address the need for power by industries and projects which have big power requirements. And it is because of these initiatives that we have been able to attract companies like Raxio Data Centre in Uganda. And as James said, indeed they need a constant supply of electricity. I was earlier briefed by the Raxio team that they are using power from 2 substations, and indeed this is a necessity for them to be able to conform to the service level agreements that they're going to have with their clientele. In 2020, as I said earlier, we saw the entire world coming to a standstill when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. Life indeed changed, and the internet became the most essential service since the world had now been deprived of physical contact and association. The cost and quality of internet is now a matter of priority, and therefore data centers have become a cornerstone of growth of the internet, since they are the home of the content networks, carriers, ISPs, mobile telecom companies, among others. Finally, as you may know, government is in the process of implementing the Data Protection and Privacy Act as part of the need to keep sensitive consumer data in the country. In line with the same policy, companies in sensitive sectors like finance, insurance, telecommunications, among others, are required to have disaster recovery locations within the country, because the data you're collecting is for citizens. So we expect that the data should indeed be stored within the country at a safe distance from the primary location to ensure business continuity. Luckily for Uganda, we've not had any major disaster, and we commend the service providers, the banks, the mobile companies, insurance companies that have indeed been able to keep services operational. This is meant to augment data sovereignty and integrity, but most importantly, to allow us as a country to leverage on the benefits of big data by having the data in the country. And again, the team had earlier alluded to that. It is therefore important to explore opportunities with companies like Raxio to improve compliance and also benefit from the experience, the global best practice that they come with, so that we indeed enjoy we enjoy the scope and magnitude over the experience that this team is coming with. Let me take this opportunity to officially recognize the investment made by Raxio in Uganda, and I hope that this will be one of the many data centers that the company will be setting up across or in different parts of the country, because, as we all know, the use of connectivity is increasing, and the implication is that we shall indeed need more and more data centers. As they've indeed indicated, 70% of the facility is already taken up, implying we shall need more space, both as government and the private sector. On behalf of government and the Ministry of ICT, I want to specially thank Raxio Group for selecting Uganda as its launchpad for its enterprise and career-grade data center across Africa. This indeed we commend as government of Uganda, and we thank you for the thought that Uganda would indeed be the first stop as a Raxio. It is our firm belief that with the launch of operations of Raxio Data Centre Uganda, the foundation for further growth of the digital economy in Uganda has been well laid. With this requisite infrastructure, we can now play an active role in the fourth industrial revolution. I think before that, we were only speculating, but I think now that we have facilities such as this one, we can indeed play a very active role. As the digital transformation of Ugandan economy continues to accelerate, the government of Uganda and the Ministry of ICT specifically looks forward to seeing Raxio Data Centre play an important role in addressing the vast growing need for facilities that store and process data in a secure and optimized environment. Ladies and gentlemen, with the launch of this facility, we can comfortably say that the ICT industry in Uganda has come of age, if you look at where we came from. So with this facility, as the ministry, we can indeed say we have come of age. With those remarks, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to declare the Raxio Data Centre open, and thank you very much for sparing the time to be here with the team.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that we'd like to officially declare Raxio, the data center company, open. Everything that you need in one location, co-location, cross connections,
security, that and more. We'd like to invite all of our guests to stand up and actually come and experience what we call Raxio. Feel free, ladies and gentlemen. So kindly walk through our guard of honor. We've got members of the Raxio team. We're going to be taking the team 15 by 15 to have an experiential look of what this Raxio story is all about. So bienvenido, soyez les bienvenus. Mweba ekuja. Apoyo neno wundushu. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good job, Tony. Good job.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I kindly ask us all to take our seats so that we can wrap up the program? So kindly take your seats. We're just about to continue with the program. Ladies and gentlemen, can I kindly ask us all to take our seats so that we can move on to the next part of the program? Members of the Raxio team, if you could kindly guide our distinguished guests to their seats so that we can continue with the program. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, can we kindly take our seats, please? Members of the Raxio team, could you kindly guide our guests to their seats so that we can kick off with the last part of the program? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. right, I think we're good to go. So can we kindly take our seats and kick off with the last part of the program? Kindly take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, if I may have your attention, I'm sure a lot of you are still razzle-dazzled about how grand this project is. But the question is, how does it fit into the grand scheme of things? What's the role of a data center of this size here in the digital revolution here in Uganda? So what we decided to do was to put together a VVIP high caliber panel discussion to be able to bring these things to the forefront. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me an individual who has actually been at the forefront of ICT for quite some time. She possesses lots of experience spanning policy, research, regulation, implementation in various aspects of media, licensing, universal access, and quality service. Please welcome with me Irene Kagwa Sewankambo, the Acting Executive Director of UCC. And joining Irene is the Commissioner for ICT Infrastructure and Development. He's got a wealth of experience in formulating policies and laws relating to ICT, as well as advising the government of Uganda in matters relating to development of broadcasting sectors and design. So please welcome the Commissioner for ICT Infrastructure Development, Geoffrey Agoy. To add depth and to increase the value of the panel, he's a Ugandan economist and the executive director of bank supervision at the Bank of Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, he's previously served as the director of industry affairs and content at UCC and holds a doctorate in philosophy. Please welcome Dr. Tumubwene Twinemanzi. And ladies and gentlemen, to complete the panel, please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of a multimedia juggernaut here in Uganda. They've got radio stations, news portals, digital communications. He's the board chairman of EcoBank, and he's very passionate about digital. Please welcome the CEO of Next Media Services, Kin Karisa. All right, so now that we know everybody, I think it's only fair if we say ladies first. Nice to see you, Irene. This microphone is all yours. So I think one of the first questions everybody is asking is, so tell me about the different trends that we're seeing in the sector in terms of media. Are you seeing any changes? Maybe you could just walk me through for a couple of seconds. Feel free to take off your masks because I think there's enough social distancing.
That was the hint, I knew that one. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. My question, the data trends in terms of media around the country. Earlier when James was speaking and talking about COVID, you know, it's always interesting that all the guys had this habit of, for example, downloading their Netflix the day before, leaving it running all night, and coming back. Now during COVID, because they were home, they didn't realize how long those downloads normally take. Now suddenly they were complaining the downloads take too long because they were home. But that goes to show you how much people have started looking at alternative means for their entertainment. Many of us are so used to our phones that we don't even realize how much we do on our phones. And the same with the content industry. We see people want the content everywhere. You have also noticed that the telecoms are entering now also as well into the broadcasting space and providing content. You have MTN partnering with your TV, you have Airtel providing you Airtel TV, because they realize the consumer is looking for that content to be able to access it anytime. Are they moving along in traffic? We are used to the radios as the pastime. Now people want to still find the content of choice, and they don't want you to dictate at this time. I know Kin will probably speak to more of that. They now want to be able to decide, this is what I want to watch, not your predetermined program to say this is what you must watch in that period. I could go on and on, but I'll stop there for now.
Okay. So, Jeffrey, I think in connection to what Irene mentioned, that consumers actually want more. So what is the government of Uganda doing to be able to enhance this digital transformation?
Thank you. I think I would look at this first from the national level. As a government, digital transformation has actually been integrated into the national planning framework. That's the first start, which I think the guest of honor also hinted. What that means is for the next 5 years, we have actually key targets to be met in the national, in NDP 3. That is what we're implementing right now. In light with what we have in NDP 3 and what we have been doing up to now, the key areas of intervention that we have actually that we have been doing and we continue to do, one of them is basically connectivity to do with the infrastructure which was mentioned. Data center is one of it. The other area is the automation of all government processes, including integration of the different systems which at the moment operate, I would say, operating in silos, but we're working towards that. Now, the third aspect is the promotion of the local ICT, what I would call the innovation. We are looking at specifically trying to address the question of how can we make Uganda the hub of ICT innovation. In other words, how do we ensure, how do we encourage the innovators in the country to actually produce quality ICT products that we can actually export, both in terms of the software and otherwise. The other area also that we have done, which cannot be left unmentioned, is the aspect of digital scaling. That's also an area that we continue to intervene in. And lastly, I think, which is quite pertinent to all of us, is the aspect of security, in as far as this particular intervention is concerned. All of us, I think, we are concerned with the, for instance, our own personal data appearing in the media. I think appearing in media, appearing online, and all that. Now, in that area, as part of the government roles, in as far as creating an enabling environment where businesses can actually flourish, we have come up with quite a number of acts and laws, or rather acts and policies and guidelines to that effect. One of it, of course, like was mentioned by the Permanent Secretary, is the Data Protection and Privacy Act, which was enacted early last year, and we also have the regulation which has actually now been approved, and the implementation actually is on schedule. Yeah, I think if I would say that is basically where we have been, and that is what we shall continue to embark on. But the key thing here is we continue to look into ways of having access to affordable, quality, and secure ICT services generally.
Yeah, I think Geoffrey, you mentioned something quite interesting when you talked about local innovation. And I think that's going to drive me to a question which is going to go to Kin. And you know, Kin, you've seen the explosion of local content in media of recent. So what do you think has been a key driver for that?
Thank you, Mitch. I think there are three things that really are driving content. This, what you are calling content explosion. One, Irene has licensed more than 40 TV stations so far, more than 310 radio stations, and many other content providers, production houses, and many others. So all those are employing people to produce content, which content end up on our mobile phones, on our televisions, on our other platforms. So that is point number one. Point number two, Ugandans are highly innovative. You look at our arts industry, our music industry. These kids are producing music videos every day. Some of them, you'll never see them on TV, but they are there moving around. Then the third one, as a country, we've developed economic development. We are not in the same space we were 20 years ago. So we have facilities, we have cameras, we have all gadgets to produce that kind of content that will end up on our platforms, TV, mobile, and others. Then the last one would be maybe, I don't want to say, if I say this, then I will be fighting with Irene on Monday. Then you said that there's freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Partly people can express themselves. They do. So people wake up and just to abuse others. They get a phone like this, then someone starts talking in their car. I'm a Bajo event, and then it goes out. So some of this content is filtered in our population. Some of our visitors might not see it, but it is out there on WhatsApp, on everything. So those four aspects that I believe they have kind of created an environment to have this content explosion.
All right. So I think let me skip away from Irene and Kin for a second and ask Dr. Twinimanzi. There's something which I read in preparation for the panel discussion, something about data sovereignty and how data must be kept in country. So what does this have to do and what type of impact will it have on financial institutions?
Yes, data sovereignty is something embodied in the Data Privacy and Protection Act of 2019. The whole idea is that different classifications or categories of information about individuals or entities, if they are Ugandan, the information should remain in Uganda. That's the whole idea of data sovereignty. But data local to Ugandans must remain in Uganda. Now, what does that mean? And I'll talk about the financial sector. What does that mean? It means essentially that those financial institution providers or service providers, for them establishing their processing networks or their processing systems, must have them in about the same place where the data is resident. But then it's an oxymoron, because the data is zeros and ones, the pulses, the right pulses. The question is, should that really be our major consideration or focus? And I don't think so, and I'm going to say why. I think that it shouldn't matter where the data is hosted, as long as the jurisdiction where it's hosted has got equivalent or better data protection rules and regulations and enforcements than you have. That way, if a bank operating in 5 or 6 countries can then pick to host its data in a country amongst the 6 that has got the most stringent data protection and privacy considerations. And you know, the thing is, one of the other things about protecting data is that when you have it in one place, it's easier to block off all the potential loopholes or perhaps points of attack.
Okay, so I think, Geoffrey, that brings you back into the discussion here. So you talked about the Data Protection Act So how does that affect me as an individual, and how can I feel safer with that act?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we choose mine.
What I would call brought up the issue of whether some of this data should reside where they should, as long as they meet certain criteria. I think as government, we were looking at it from the economy side of it. In other words, having the data, all data reside within the country, first of all, that means a lot of the computation, the analysis and all that can actually be done by within Uganda and by Ugandans. That's of course in terms of job creation and all that. But to come back to what you have asked, what does it mean in as far as the Data Protection and Privacy Act to you and me? Data protection and privacy, it is quite important in as far as realization of what we're heading towards to is the digital economy. The key commodity, as Kin hinted, in one way or another, is actually the sale of say your biodata as of this day, plus others. But then, what does that mean in as far as access and use of your information by others are concerned? So the implication of having this law at hand is that all the stakeholders are actually protected from the angle of those who are collecting the data, first of all, from whoever they're collecting, and then also those who are processing that kind of data. And then lastly, of course, the issue of access. Who should actually access it vis-a-vis the obligation which are put towards when you access the data, what do you use it for? But of course also, this act provides protection for you and me. So going forward, I think the act is actually is still, I would say, immature because we have not yet tested it. It has full-scale implementation simply is just beginning. It was enacted earlier last year, and therefore we have to give it time to actually see how far it can actually help us to protect our individual data. But in a nutshell, I think we have that framework at hand. But even then, we have parallel laws which also does protect you and me. One of them, of course, what we had been using before, the Computer Misuse Act, and also the Electronic Transaction Act. All these, in a way, they also enable us to address issues of data protection and data privacy. Thank you.
All right, so back to Irene. If you remember what Kin said, that we've got so much more over the top content which is coming on people's phones. You know, people are doing these short films, and you've got so much more information which is coming out, you know, and it's not coming out on your conventional and the traditional means of communication and media. So how can these global delivery channels take advantage of this content?
Okay. Take advantage of our content? One of the things Kin pointed out is we have a host of content. And everybody, yes, one of the things he didn't mention is we oblige them to carry a certain percentage of local content. Now, when we look at these global content delivery networks and content providers, they too are looking for content. I remember a meeting we had some years back with Sony, and because the American market has kind of reached almost a saturation point, they are always looking for new markets and new partners. So they are looking to other countries elsewhere where they can go and develop the content, because they realize this is the new opportunity. With everybody going digital, there is that new market to create the content. Now, that's why I asked them taking advantage or coming to partner with us to be able to develop and enhance the quality of our content.
Is that where Raxio comes in?
Good question. Raxio positions itself to be, when James was speaking earlier, he talked about the issue of you don't want the delays.
Yes.
You do not want to wait for the content to come from one network, move all over the world before it comes back to your provider of the internet. So with Raxio, it provides the global partners an opportunity to come. You shouldn't have to, keep going over the international links when you want to access anything through Google. If they have their cache connected or stored at Raxio, then they are able to easily peer with all the other networks. They can connect to our internet exchange point. They can connect to our directly peering with any of the other providers, so that there is quicker. Everybody now wants it faster. We do not want delays, so you end up providing a better consumer experience because you have reduced that delay time and the roundabout time by, as well as the costs. They don't have to come and establish their own servers and set up their own data center elsewhere, when they can come and cut costs, because then they've addressed the power issues, they've addressed the security issues, they've addressed the cooling issues, all these issues that would be required if they set up by themselves. So by having their facility, their servers at a facility like Raxio, they then have a quicker inlet into the market, as well as an opportunity to network and peer with all the relevant content providers and content delivery networks.
Okay. I think that brings me to a question which I'd like to ask in, because I know you're the chairman of the National Broadcasters Association. So currently, what are you doing to be able to first of all collect and to archive your data?
So Mitch, just to bring it home to, is it on? Good. Just to bring it home, what you see on television, what in your bulletins, in our shows, it is something that is done by these 40 TVs that I've mentioned that have gotten licenses from UCC. Every day, they send out their teams with cameras to collect content. They bring that content to their newsrooms, to their production departments, to prepare it for your eyes, for a great experience, so that you, instead of having 6 hours of filming, you watch 2.5 minutes. So an editor is employed to make sure that they pick out of the 6 hours of filming this event, they pick out 2.5 minutes as part of the business news in the 9 o'clock bulletin. But we have to keep the other 6 hours. And you keep these the 2.5 minutes, because UCC requires that you must keep what you've aired for a period of time. Now, media houses like ours, like Next Media or NBS, we produce 5 to 6 terabytes of content every month. 5 to 6 terabytes. We do produce football in partnership with MTN, Uganda Premier League. Each game is 80 gigabytes, 80. Because we produce it in HD, And we do 4 to 5 games a week. So now you do the math. We might fill up these data centers as the next media. And then every media house in this country produces content. Okay, the scale, we differ in terms of scale, but we produce content to be able to give you better viewing experience or better content. We have to keep the raw footage and what we've aired so that we fulfill IRIN's requirements, licensing requirements. Now, what are we doing in terms of archiving and storage? Most of us, we've created our mini data centers, not at this level. Mini data centers, some cooling facilities, some servers. We buy storage every quarter. One of my biggest costs, IT costs, go towards storage. And then again, we must hire staff. So you imagine someone has created something like this here. You won't hire staff. You will hire IT staff to be able to connect between this data center and your facilities. But the cost of cooling, storage, servers, all that cost will be absorbed here, and I will be able to pay it over time. And I won't have headaches of uptime and all these things. So it's as NAB, as members of broadcasting industry, we are happy that there is a facility like this one, and I want to thank Raxio for this. Thank you very much. You will save us, the regulator will be happier with us because we'll be able to, whenever they ask, you aired uncut of this date, it said this and this, please produce it. We'll be able to produce that footage. But also, all these events that we cover, we always refer to them in our future bulletins. For example, you're talking about, let's say, 5 years later, Olanya is handing over, Right Honorable Speaker Olanya is handing over to another speaker, maybe to Right Honorable Among. We will say, on this date, on 24th May 2021, this and this happened. So we have to pick that footage that we stored 5 years ago to be able to give you a better viewing experience, to give you some perspective, and that's what. So where will you have stored that footage for those 5 years? So this Raxio is going to make a lot of money. This is my request, that they need to create some, since they are in tiers now, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. This is a tier 3 data center. They need to create a tier for broadcasters. Not the same tier with the banks. With my other hat, I know banks, we have we deal in money, we trade in money, so we have money to be able to take care of these things. Broadcasters, on the other hand, they will buy cameras before they think about storage. So Biaru, think about broadcasters, give them a special package so that you enable them to broadcast in this industry. As it is now, the footage we stored maybe 5 or 10 years ago, we've written on it because we have to regain storage, we have to create more storage space, you have to delete some footage to be able to store new footage. That's how it is.
Okay. Dr. Twinemanzi, Kin brought to light something very, very interesting, and I hope Biaru, you're watching. I think Kin is going to be customer number 00001. So I think you've hit your targets for the entire quarter. Let's give them a big round of applause. Just sign the checks. Huh? But Dr. Twinemanzi, I think the question now which I asked you is that Kin talked about the business community. So what does a data center like this mean for the business community?
What does it mean? It means you're going to have the possibility, and I think I see my friend here from URA, the possibility of companies having cloud-based accounting software. It means, because you see, for example, when you take a loan from a bank, one of the requirements is that every so often you must provide your financials. Okay? Some of these entities don't have quite organized books and papers and records. However, nothing stops an accounting firm like Tally or QuickBooks from setting up a cloud service here, and then you log on the way you log on your Gmail, and they have an account set up for them and they can track their expenses. Those are some of the opportunities that come up. And when you have something like that, it makes it easier for the work for the banks in terms of being able to track the performance and monitor how their clients, their customers are doing. But that's only just doing business, even for the banks themselves. I mean, hopefully next week I see the UBA representative here, is that as the financial sector regulator together with the commercial banks, we're toying with the idea of perhaps a cloud-based core banking system. So that, as they say, they don't have to spend so much. The average deployment for a core banking system in a bank today is about $4 or $5 million. If it would be deployed here as a cloud service, and you have it as software as a service, perhaps your out-of-pocket expenses would be less. And if they are less, then I now have the stick to walk to the banks and say, why are you still charging, why you still have your high charges? So all these things, and you were saying earlier on that the banks have money. No, they don't. Because everything they pay for me and you actually pay for it. So that's what it means. It means that you're going to have businesses beginning to automate what are normally considered mundane or routine processes. But it means that my friend Rojoti now has visibility in terms of what you're doing. So while this data center is a beautiful idea, for the business community, transparency is going to become necessary in how you conduct your business.
I'm giving you 30 seconds, parting shot. Everybody prepare your submissions. Dr. Twinimanzi, let me start with you. It's okay.
I think, and I'll talk really about the banking sector. There's going to be 3 things that the banks are going to consider or financial institutions are going to look at as they look at this data center. One, they're going to ask themselves, of their current processes and IT infrastructure, what can they move to facility like this? 2, when and how? When do they move it? How do they move it? And then lastly, something that the Commissioner made reference to, where I think we might have a bit of a difference of opinion, the implication of data residue, the localization of data. So, for someone a financial institution to fully benefit from a facility like this, you conduct a risk assessment, then you ask yourself, of the processes I currently am paying Computer Point or any other company for, what can I move here? How do I move it? And what does it mean for my compliance with the general rules and regulations guiding how I manage customer information?
Dr. Twinimanzi, thank you. King Karisa, parting shot, 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mitch. One, I want to thank Raxio again for this wonderful facility. And I want to encourage you to come and access our members, the broadcasters, and give them options. Options from a smaller broadcaster to the bigger groups. Right now we use cloud storage. I don't want to mention those options that we have. They are quite expensive, and they force us basically to create packages that are easy to carry so that we can enjoy those storage services at lower costs. So we believe working with you and connecting our media houses with fiber to this facility, it will help a lot in keeping our content, but also it will kind of give us options to be able to give our viewers better viewing experience, because we'll be able to refer to content that we stored 10 years ago, be able to refer it in our current content. Thank you very much.
King Karisa, thank you very much. Geoffrey Ogoy.
Thank you. I think from the government perspective, I know there are parallel efforts in establishing data centers, but not to the extent of tier 3 like this. And data centers, from the analysis that we have done, if actually government embraces it, it will go a leeway in enabling government actually to effectively deliver the services to the general citizen. In a nutshell, we look at the different MDAs. There are plans to have smaller, what I would use for lack of a better word, smaller data centers within those MDAs for purposes of executing what they're supposed to do. But I think with the coming of this data center, we may need to sensitize them and as well bring to their attention that we have such a facility, and therefore we may need to collaboratively as government get on board and utilize it for the benefit of service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. So Irene, what do you want us to take home?
Allow me to first and foremost congratulate James. We spent many years with Twine, I'm used to calling him Twine, trying to convince people data centers and an opportunity in Uganda. When James first mentioned, I'm like, James, what's happening? What's happening? So applauds to you that it finally happened. And for each one out there, if you think you do not need the services of a data center, for as long as you're going for as long as you're digitalizing your services and your facilities, you are going to produce data, you are going to need to store it, you're going to need servers. Yes, there's virtualization, but the reality is, do you want to have to set up a data center and spend lots of money like Kim has told you in terms of the IT, the power, umeme goes off and you're having a blackout? Transfer the responsibility to somebody else. Haunt James rather than haunting your staff. That way he has to make sure you have a reliable service and you get to sit back. And really, the final word from me would be, one of the things we observed in January. I know Twine said you have to weigh, do you want to keep it local? Here is my advice to you. We need to build the resilience of our networks locally so that irrespective of whether all the submarine cables that James mentioned go off, we would still be able to enjoy the benefits of the digitalization if we are networked within Uganda. And a facility like Raxio provides easy opportunity for each of us to provide that networking and the peering locally. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause to all of our panelists. Thank you very much. And I think there it goes. Raxio is the solution. So what are you waiting for? The entire team is sitting at the back there and waiting to hear what your challenges are and how they can assist. Thank you very much. Video, please.
Introducing the Raxio Data Centre, the first of its kind in Uganda. Nestled within the Kampala Industrial and Business Park in Namanve, the Raxio Data Centre will enable businesses in Uganda to leverage their data to create new opportunities. As the country's first Tier 3 carrier-neutral colocation data center, Raxio is designed to host critical IT equipment that businesses depend on. Equipment that will be housed in an optimally controlled environment and monitored by our team of experts.
We are a certified Tier 3 data center. This means 98.98 availability. This also means we are only allowed 3 hours downtime in which to either fix, repair, or take something offline. But not to worry. While all this is happening, your equipment and systems are still running on our backups.
We have partnered with leading data center designers to build a facility that will deliver highly efficient cooling, resilient power supply, and unrivaled connectivity.
We are getting 2 power supplies coming from 2 different substations. In the unlikely event that both power supplies will not be available, we have deployed standby generators which act as a backup in the event the umeme supply is unavailable. So these standby generators also work in 1+1 mode, or primary and secondary, so they back up each other.
Your business is important to us. That's why we've ensured unmatched security and internationally recognized operating protocols. You will have peace of mind knowing that your equipment is under the best of care.
Data is the new gold, and we at Raxio understand the need to protect it. From the physical security, outside the building, we have HD cameras. We have our guards that are always monitoring the facility 24/7. And when we come to the building, all our doors have access control. And when we come to the data hall, every door is protected by biometrics, which means only our team of engineers can access it.
Where the magic happens is in the Raxio Data Hall, which will house up to 400 racks. It will offer flexible scaling options with a range of power densities and connectivity to fiber, mobile, broadband, content distribution networks, and cloud service providers.
Data hall is a secure environment within the data center. It's optimally controlled environment. Total capacity of 400 racks, which translates to 1.5 megawatts.
The internet is just a backbone of data centers across the globe. So to achieve that connectivity, we have partnered with 10 fiber carriers. And this brings us to the concept of carrier neutrality. We have partnered with the Uganda Internet Exchange Point, which makes it possible to localize all our content in Uganda. That makes it cheaper for the end users and improves performance.
We can also accommodate our customers in purpose-designed flexible workspaces and meeting rooms to enable you keep your business moving. An exceptional service you can trust.
Businesses have challenges running data applications, and in order to overcome these challenges, there are 4 major constraints that have to be robustly taken care of. These constraints are power, space, cooling, and connectivity. With space of up to 400 racks, 1.5 megawatts of IT power, 12 fiber carriers with diverse routes, 7 levels of security, and Uganda's second internet exchange point. Why not collocate with us? For more information, please send us an email to sales@raxio.co.ug. Let's collocate.
Raxio, the data center company.
Thank you, Mish, and thank you everyone for coming. I know you have had as enlightening a day as I have. Uganda's first enterprise-grade data center. Wow, right? And that this is just the beginning of a great relationship between Raxio and you. Please feel welcome to stick around a bit longer and have a cocktail. Our team is ready to talk to you and answer any questions. I've been your virtual assistant Raxi, and I will not be saying goodbye, because this is just the beginning.